Out doping the 6.5 Creedmoor with the 144 grain burgers. Came out to 600, and you can see here that the initial 3 shots at 600 yards, I hit low and I saw it, so I came up a 10th and hit 2 more. Felt like that was still low, so I came up from 3.2 up to 3.4. This was just holding, and so then I dialed it and I shot another target over here to confirm that, and I got the 3 impacts that you can see here, and so the elevation was good. And then because of that, I changed the velocity, which brought it down to 2780. I'm not sure if that's the technique that people use, but that's what I've been doing recently. 500-600 yards, adjusting my velocity when there's elevation issues, then going out and seeing if that's repeatable. Okay, what I'm gonna do now is, I've got 7 distances. I'm gonna try to talk through it. I just wrote down paper dope, and we're gonna try to tune in what I held and what it hit with to try to get some data. So this is gonna take a little bit, but hopefully it'll be worth it for the data collection. My first shot is gonna be holding 1 mil at 306 yards. I'm gonna check parallax. I'm gonna check dope. I'm gonna get a wind call from this, but I'm gonna hold 6 miles an hour. This is the 300-yard target. I held 6 miles an hour of wind, and it was a little bit it was less than that, so I held too much, and it was a little high for my point of aim, but I wasn't too concerned. I wanted to make sure that the data lined up farther out, so I'm gonna paint this and let's keep going. Plate rack. I'm gonna adjust my parallax. I'm gonna hold 3 miles an hour, which would be we're at the 500-yard plate rack, and I made my wind adjustment off the 300-yard target, and you can see here that the 500-yard plate rack, it's a 8-inch square, and the wind correction was good. All right, back out at the 600-yard plate. We can see that from 3, I corrected to 5. 5, I took a shot out here at 6. The plate's big, but this is, I was aiming 7. I'm gonna hold the same thing. So here you can see that it was a little bit high. I mean, this is 800 yards, so, that could have been that's a 10th or 2 high. 900 yards. And I hit with 4 miles an hour. I'm going to confirm that on the smaller plate. This wind call and aim center at this smaller plate and got a headshot. So for some reason, this particular target, my shots were going high, which is interesting, and I don't have an explanation for. Says 1K, and to be honest, with the Mirage, I couldn't tell exactly where I hit, but I didn't see anything above and below, and it turns out my elevation and my wind were good, having corrected it from 900. I believe I took a 10th off. We'll have to review the video. Here we are at 1100, and honestly, I couldn't see anything. I just kind of shot. I was looking for dust, and I heard the sound, and that's what I used to determine that I had impacted it. It was a little weird, but let's go check them out. Okay, now what we're gonna do is clip into the tripod and see if that data holds true clipped in. I really like the positional stuff, and I'm gonna walk through this just as slow. I'm just using my no wind dope, and what I'm gonna do is, because this is a 6 mile an hour gun, talk through my wind calls, hits, elevations, and then we're gonna go look at it again. So starting at 300, I'm gonna get back on target. Just my parallax. Ammo is gonna help. The kneeling tripod walkout. Here's my elevation and wind hold. The wind was a little bit less than I had anticipated, and that's fine. I made my wind correction here, being at 300, and kept walking it out. Remember, this is kneeling, clipped into the tripod. Just parallax. Kneeling, clipped into the tripod, walk out. Here's 500 yards, and again, I was shooting this 8 or 9 inch square. You could see that when it hit, you can kind of see that I had hit it there before, so the data's good. The wind correction from 3 to 5 holds true, because each time I made my correction at 3 and managed to get a good center hit. All right, 600 yards, kneeling tripod. I actually took 2 shots. So this is 2 shots, kneeling at 600. You could see the 2 impacts. I was aiming for a center punch, and it was a little bit right and a little bit low. I wasn't sure if that was me, so I shot 700, impacted, it was a little bit to the right, and then I held the same hold again to see if it was me or the wind, and took this shot. So they weren't 1, 2, it was 1, 600, 700, I saw it to the right, and then 600. I wanted to see if it was wind or if it was me, and if it was wind or if it was me, either way it was consistent. So the elevation was a little bit low, the wind was a little bit higher. My guess is that 1/10 of lift. I think when the wind's coming from the left, with spin drift, oftentimes people add a 1/10, and a 1/10 would have put it center line here with a little bit stronger wind. That could be an explanation. I just don't know. When I went from 600 to 900, you could see that I thought the wind had increased. So I increased my wind hold, and it had died off a little bit. Out, this is 1,000 yards, and at 1,000 yards I made my wind correction and still managed to hit the left side of the plate, so the wind either continued to die off or I had a little bit of a left shift. I have a tendency clipped into the tripod and not clipped into the tripod to have my shots go a little bit left. I'll show you my zero target, and you'll see that my zero target is about a 1/10 left. So this could definitely be me, but the elevation was good. 11-16, the hold from 1,000 yards, I took off a little wind, and I still hit left and a little bit low. Okay, after I walked it out to 1100, I wanted to see if I had a good return to zero, and then shooting kneeling off the tripod clipped in. Kneeling tends to be one of my weaker positions, and we can see here that on this shoot and see, where's my hand? On this shoot and see, The return to zero was good. I have about a 1/10 left shift, and I'm not going to be worried too much about that. I'm more concerned about just whether I was coming back to reasonable elevation or not, and I think it returned back to zero pretty good. A 1/10 left shift with that wobbliness. You know, right now I'm probably shooting 2/10 left and right either way, so that really could have been me or anything like that. But what I wanted to see was that I had a good return down to my elevation.